Hi, my name is Vanessa COF, and I'll be talking about why having the legal drinking age at 21 is an ineffective policy, as well as a dangerous one. My first claim is that society creates temptation revolving around alcohol, and that the temptation for anyone under the age of 21 is increasingly high. My second point is that the U.S. has one of the highest drinking legal ages, but it's one of the most liberal countries, so that's contradictory. And my third point is that because underage students and individuals take place in dangerous drinking behavior, they're reluctant to call for help when necessary, leading to unnecessary tragedy. So my first point is that having a legal drinking age at 21 creates temptation to younger individuals. Culturally, alcohol consumption is publicized and it's hyped, and it's considered necessary for fun in many situations. Parties, cool factors are dependent upon whether or not there's alcohol served. Parties are, then once you're there, revolve around drinking games and dangerous behavior relating to alcohol. And then, therefore, parties encourage this risky behavior in children that are under 21. Also, advertising plays a big role in this, and that marketing isn't limited to anyone that's over the legal drinking age. Therefore, anyone who sees it associates alcohol with a good time and the fantasy that these ads create for students and individuals. Mothers Against Drunk Driving, which is a reputable source in prevention of dangerous drinking behavior, reports that nearly half, or 48%, of all alcohol consumed by students attending four-year universities is done so by underage students. For many students, this is their first time away from home. It's their chance to be rebellious, and alcohol creates that opportunity for them. It's been something that's been forbidden for so long, therefore they indulge in it in an unhealthy manner. Having a lower drinking age would demystify this to them and allow them to potentially engage in it in a more controlled manner earlier on, rather than jumping into dangerous behavior and not knowing what they're getting themselves into. My second point is that the United States is one of the few countries in the world with a legal drinking age of 21. Reported by the International Center for Alcohol Policies, which is an international organization that helps regulate alcohol sale and consumption, 8 out of the 123 countries that were surveyed in the situation had a legal drinking age of 21, whereas the overwhelming majority, 98 countries, reported a drinking age of 18 or younger. The other countries, alcohol was illegal. So we're behind the curve age-wise. My third point is that help is not called in a time of need due to the fear that underage students possess. When students engage in drinking competitions, they do so not knowing their limits in many cases, and this leads to danger. At many parties, the majority of the students are underage, considering that college freshmen start out at 18 and usually end their careers at 22. So when somebody's in trouble, they don't call for help due to the fact they feel endangered and that they get in trouble. A recent 60 Minutes interview conducted with University of Colorado at Boulder, police officer reported a 2004 tragedy with Gordon Bailey. He was rushing fraternity his freshman year. He was 18 years old, and part of the recruitment policy was to consume 10 gallons of alcohol in 10 minutes. By the end of the evening, he was incapacitated and passed out on the floor at the frat house. Many of the other students were incapacitated as well, but in the morning he didn't wake up. Nobody called for help because the majority of all the rushing individuals were underage, and the fraternity's policy was a dry house, so they weren't allowed to have alcohol. And many of the students were underage as well, so they didn't call in fear of what would happen to them and the repercussions. In conclusion, I believe the drinking age should be lowered because it doesn't stop individuals from partaking in this hazardous behavior. Secondly, being in the United States, we're very liberal, and this is the one stance that we've taken that's very conservative and dangerous. And finally, drinking age should be lowered because in the event of tragedy, students should feel safe in knowing that they can call for help. Thank you.
All right, well, the subject's identified, but the proposition as you present it is actually phrased as a question, so you want to restate it as a declarative statement. Secondary claims are listed in a preview, so that should help the structure a little bit, although they're not always claims. For example, on the second point, it's really just a piece of factual data as opposed to an inference. The inference that you want to draw on that point is that there's something wrong with having the level that is substantially higher than all the other countries, that there's some consequence to doing that, and I think that that point is underdeveloped. The signposting on the points as you went through them was relatively clear, so that helps the structure, but like I said, it doesn't necessarily advance the argument very clearly. You had evidence on the first point that talked about the consumption of alcohol at parties. I thought that that was a pretty good start on your information, but that's excuse me. That's the only information that you have about underage consumption, and it's the only information at all that might be applicable to the thing that you're saying at the end, which is that the laws don't prevent people from having access to alcohol. Although it appears that when they get to college, that's, you know, their first access to the alcohol situation. I guess the argument is that we should just eliminate college. I don't. Because it sounds like we're all a bunch of idiots here. You know, you got to be. I think you need to have more information about how people under the age of 21 do get access to alcohol, how it's problematic, and how the laws are not making any difference in their access to alcohol, because that's the point that you're trying to get across there. And the only thing that you have is that one study on the college parties. And then you've got the one example of a real harm, and unfortunately that's the only example of a harm that you have, and that's the one student who overdoes it at the fraternity party. I guess it's a hazing thing. But 10 gallons in 10 minutes. You can't pour 10 gallons of anything in 10 minutes. You can't get it into a bottle in 10 minutes, much less. So I'm not sure that that's the accurate quote, but it also seems inconsistent because the very next thing we find out is, but it's the policy of the fraternity that they're dry. So what the hell is going on here? Who is it making these decisions? Is it the fraternity or is it the students in the fraternity? Right, and I think that that's, and there could be a good argument that says that the students, because they haven't learned how to do these things appropriately, because they haven't been introduced to it, they just go ape crazy, you know, and start pouring alcohol as if it's water for each other. And I think there's a good argument to be made there. But again, that's your only example, and so I think it's a little problematic. All right, thank you.